Hi everybody, boys and girls. My name is Darren and I'm coming to you from ibogatherapy.com, and we're going to do some microdose sessions with videos, and my goal here is to get the word out to the world about this amazing healing plant, Iboga. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of history, and I'm going to try to make this quick and concise. Iboga is originally from the Congo, where Cameroon and Gabon and the Congo meet in that corner, and that's where the pygmies have been for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. There's even heritage talk of using Iboga 15,000 years ago amongst these little people living in the Congo. A few hundred years ago, a little bit less, the French invaded Gabon, and they pushed the Bushmen people there and the regular folk too back into the jungle, and where they met with the Bitwi, and the Bitwi handed them over this amazing, beautiful plant used in rituals, used to talk to the ancients, used for knowledge, used for fertility. They didn't have any addiction problems there. They weren't using this for psycho-spiritual reasons. This was some serious business, and not to be taken lightly. When the pygmies merged with the people of Gabon and a little bit of Cameroon there, they formed their own tradition, if you will, called Bitwi, okay? And they have their own ways and manners to deal with this plant there. I am not a Bitwi initiate. I don't really have much to do with that culture, other than I use their plants. I start my ceremonies with the first star in the sky, and that's about it. That's where I drop off the map on this, but we'll get into that later. We're going to talk more about Iboga. Iboga was first brought into the Western world in Paris, France in 1938, and it came in a little box called Labre Deme. And that was used in microdosing, and they used that for energy, clarity, this type of thing. Anybody who was fatigued. So you had these mountain climbers from France climbing Everest or riding the Tour de France on Iboga. So, and that stayed legal for a while. It showed up in the States. The great guy, Howard Lotsoff, in I think 1964, 65, something like this. Well, he discovered three of his friends, I think one was a biologist and happened to have some Iboga, and these 3 or 4 gentlemen that took it happened to be addicted to heroin, and they took it the night before and they woke up without their addiction. Amazing, right? So Howard Lotsoff, along with his wife, along with Dana Beal even, tried to get this plant legalized in the United States for 20 years, okay? They failed because this plant is only illegal in 14 countries in the world, and these were where the pharmaceutical companies have a stronghold in. And so that's a bit of the history of Iboga. But I want to tell you what this plant does. It's 100% love. It grounds an individual to the center of the earth. It gives you knowledge from the universe. It aligns you with the universe. This plant, it took me about 4 years. I've been working with this plant many years. I've done many ceremonies. I am retired now. My mission is to save this plant from extinction. And that's my goal, and that's what I'm doing. Anyways, this plant rebirths a person. It resets your neurotransmitters. It goes into your body, and it's like 1,000 nanoparticles, and it's searching for, getting to know you first off when you take this. I'm talking about a ceremonial dose right now, and then we'll get into microdosing. So if you took this in one of my ceremonies, your preparation is going to be a liver cleanse, because it's the most detoxifying natural substance on the planet, and it's pulling all these heavy metals out of your brain. And I used to deal a lot with Alzheimer's and MS. All these people have high levels of aluminum in their brain, and this stuff just pulls it out like nobody's business. But your liver has to be clean. Your magnesium levels, I recommend 400 milligrams of magnesium for 3 weeks prior to a session. That's 3 coconuts a day, or 400 milligrams of magnesium citrate. There's different types of magnesium. So, but yeah, and that's all, and I maybe turn down 1 in 300 of people, okay? And there's other facilities, so you can do this for psycho-spiritual, you can do this for addiction, or my specialty is ailments. It's amazing for all of them. intention is everything with this plant. Yeah, so so Iboga goes into your body, it scans your body, and then it scans your mind, and your mind turns into basically Google, and it gives you the best advice. Iboga is the truth. It is always the truth. It will always give you good advice. It will not let negative thought patterns into your brain. It's not a Band-Aid. We're not just fixing you for the day like an SSRI or one of these pharmaceutical companies does, but we're absolutely fixing you, okay? Its goal is to give you complete love and clarity, and it's rebirthing you. We all felt amazing the day we were born. We just don't remember. This plant gets you back to that day again, perfectly aligned with the universe and organic. And we're meant to be organic. We're meant to eat organic. So this is a big part of our health. So anyways, and if you do a good Iboga session, you probably, like I just did, you probably won't want to do it again the rest of your life if you live to its advice, which is be organic, live organic. Iboga treats you how you treat yourself. Now, I used to deal with addicts in Mexico City. If you've been doing, say, cocaine and alcohol, you're gonna have a rough night. You're gonna puke a lot, maybe have some diarrhea. Great, it changes your oil, right? It's changing your oil. It's making you pure, it's purifying you. And yeah, it takes 30 hours. It's a long, tough love. It's a long, tough love. And you gotta knuckle ride it to the end. And it's fascinating. There's nothing fun about it, okay? Although I've laughed a few times on Iboga. But 70% of people have visions. If you need visions, it will certainly give that to you. Yeah. It works like this. I had one pharmaceutical company owner fly down on his private jet, have a chat with me here in Costa Rica, and his goal was to take out the visions of Iboga so they could legalize it in the States, because that was the problem with the government. They call them hallucinations, I call them visions. But I said, you're out of your mind for doing that, because I'll give you an example, a woman from North Carolina, a doctor, vivacious, very good. But the problem with her is she was her biggest inner critic. And in the first hour of her ceremony, she saw the words inner critic above her, and a rock came down out of the sky and pushed him right through the floor. And that was the end of her being an inner critic. If she didn't have that vision, she wouldn't have had that experience. So yeah, of course we need the visions, if you do. Iboga, there's a saying with Iboga, it's gonna give you what you need, not necessarily what you want. Yeah, so let's talk about, okay, so you have psycho-spiritual, and people take this just for the experience, to get knowledge, to heal as well. And that's a wonderful experience. Addiction, psycho-spiritual is gonna be one ceremony, okay? Addiction, it might be 2 ceremonies, depending what you're on. I'm gonna do another video on the dangers of Iboga, which is not that many. People will say, oh, it's killed 15 people in the last 10 or 15 years. Let's not forget that US medical doctors killed 244,000 people last year, okay? So what are we dealing with here? And all the incidents where people have passed on Iboga have really been the facilitator's culpability. And I call these places, what went down? You can't take an addict who's been doing heroin for 15 years and living on McDonald's and give them Iboga. They're weak. Your heart rate goes up. This is quite the experience, you know, and you gotta, if you can walk up a mountain and watch the sunset, you can take Iboga basically. We're looking for a strong heart, a strong liver, no recent head injuries. And the biggest danger is Western pharmaceuticals. And so if you don't know what a half-life is, you can Google any one of, and 70% of Americans and Canadians are on these drugs, right? And so I study them, I have been for years and years and years, and I study the half-life. So I'll take like Effervex or Zoloft. Okay, it takes 3 to 5 days to come off of. But my advice to anybody doing an Iboga ceremony, whether it be a B2E tradition or whether, is to microdose first, okay? Because that helps you prepare, it cleans you, the plant gets to know you. What's hard for some people to grasp, by the way, is the intelligence of these plants. It's extraordinary. So much smarter than we are. If you know about the doctrine of signatures, that's where like a walnut looks like your brain. It's good for your brain. Iboga, the seed of Iboga, which I deal with a lot, looks just like your brain, and it's super good for your brain. Like I said, it gives you the best advice and whatnot. But anyways, so I know I'm mixing things around here. So you got psycho-spiritual addiction. You need to be off of these. Barbiturates and Suboxones are probably Iboga's worst enemy. You got to be very careful. I have to be very careful with this situation here. Now, you have facilities serving most addicts Ibogaine, okay? And I'm going to do another short video on Ibogaine. What is Ibogaine? And a lot of people know Iboga as Ibogaine. Ibogaine is scientists isolated 12 alkaloids out of the Iboga plant, and they came up with this little kind of pill. You don't have to take the root bark, which tastes crazy, but you take this little pill. The problem, and it works great, by the way. It cures thousands and thousands of people of addiction, and it's even used in some cases for ailments in some places. The Betwee are mainly against this, as the Pygmies are, because it's not what comes from the earth. I'm against it for the reason is these scientists are leaving out the other spectrum of this, what this root bark gives you, and that's the full healing, okay? I have lost faith in the the medical association. I've lost faith in the scientists too here. I use the root bark the way God provided it out of the ground, and this is the way we're meant to take it. That's my opinion, and that's what I work with. But that's what the difference is between Ibogaine and Iboga. So, you can go to a facility for addiction, and they're going to put you on a table and probably hook you up to a heart monitor. So, and they're going to require an EKG stress test for your heart and a liver enzyme test, okay? Now, when I first started out years and years and years ago, I used to require this too, but my history and my path, I did around with 5 countries and 58 doctors and got nowhere and spent a lot of money and got nowhere with the diagnosis. It was ciguatera, red tide toxins, and it was a naturopathic doctor who happened to be a holistic medical intuitive, which is basically a psychic, and she diagnosed me in 10 minutes, and I worked with her to develop what I call the Global Nurture Project, and it's a way we can diagnose and cure anybody of anything, and I know that's a bold statement, but this is what I've seen in thousands of cases. These people exist. I work with Catherine Kerrigan. I'm going to do a video on her. She's extraordinary. But if you come to see me, you're going to fill out an intake form, and you're going to get a medical reading, which is about 21 pages. It's going to tell me everything about you, what's your most stressed organ, and how many grams of Iboga are we talking about here for healing, all of this stuff. And I've been doing this for years and years and years, and it's been working extraordinary. I've never had an incident, a problem, unless it was an addict who was lying about taking barbiturates the next day. But anyways, all good there. So that's how I screen my people, and that's unorthodox and hard for some people to grasp. If you didn't know who Edgar Cayce was, he's the guy who coined the term holistic healing, right? And he was a medical intuitive and the best. There's 9,000 documented medical cases. He has 14,000 documented readings that he did, 9,000 of which are medical. It took me 2 years to read every single one, and you cannot debunk this guy, okay? I work with people on par with Edgar Cayce. So if you don't know who he was, research him. He's extraordinary and he's undebunkable. So moving right along, this is what Iboga does for you. It gives you nothing but love. I've seen it cure stage 4 lung cancer overnight, clear up skin conditions. It's not natural, okay? It's supernatural, and it loves you, and it wants you to be loved, and it wants you to be pure, and it's extraordinary, and it's amazing what it can do in 30 hours. I'm urging you to know about this plant so nobody has to suffer. In that Western medicine bullshit world, you don't have to do it, and you don't have to spend that money. You need to know about this plant. It is amazing. I'm telling you, okay? And how do I know Iboga is for me? I don't know. That's why I do the reading. And once I have the reading, I know. Usually it is. You have to have the intention into this plant, and you have to have the trust in the facilitator, and you watch what it can do. It loves you. I love you. Take care.